So if you watched the Huskers game yesterday, you didn't miss anything. But you know what? It's pretty interesting that, again, we Nebraskans, a lot of us, get so caught up in a football game, and they tried, and they did okay. Not as good as we'd like to. There's a lot of penalties, over 100-something yards of penalties. But I thought about it, and back when Tom Osborne was coach, he gave God a lot of glory. And I don't hear any of that going on today. Maybe if they started giving God a little glory, maybe they might do better. So anyways, we're talking about giving God the glory with the gifts that He has blessed us with. And again, we've been talking about spiritual gifts. And again, I think if we don't understand that each and every one of us that are Christians have been given some kind of gift and talents to be used for His glory. Every single one of us. And if we're not using the gifts that He has blessed us with for His glory, then who are we doing it for? You see, I think a lot of people have talents, and they use their talents, but they use their talents to glorify themselves, to make themselves look good, or make themselves look better, or say, people can say, attaboy. But then what is the whole purpose of our spiritual gifts if we're taking all the glory? In Colossians, the 3rd chapter, the Apostle Paul says, whatever you do in word or deed, do some of it for the glory of God and then keep some of it for yourself, right? No? It says, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through Him to God the Father. Whatever you do, do your work how? Grudgingly?
Heartily.
No, heartily. As for the Lord rather than for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance. It is the Lord Christ whom you serve. And again, so many times, we don't get what we want out of life. It's because we seek to do what God has blessed us with to make ourselves look better, and then we end up feeling a little empty. Why is that? Well, that's not how God designed us. God understands us. He knows how He made us. He knows that we work a certain way, and that if we use what He has blessed us with, the gifts that He has blessed us with, and we use those gifts to give Him glory, then we are aligned with how He created each and every one of us. Again, Matthew 5, we talked about this before. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. In 1 Peter 4, it says, whoever speaks is to do so as one who is speaking the utterance of God. Whoever serves is to do so as one who is serving by the strength which God supplies, so that in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom belongs the glory and dominion forever and ever. We must give God the glory for all that we do. I think one of the reasons there's a lot of people that are unhappy in life is because they go through life unfulfilled. They do not feel that their self-worth is something that they can be proud of. But the thing is, the reason for that is they want to give themselves glory for the things that they do instead of giving God all the glory. In Ephesians it says that for grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is a gift of God. That is the results of works, so that no one may boast. And you see, again, there's so many people that get this all wrong because they think that they use their gifting to make themselves look better, but no, the grace that God has given us, the gifts that God has given each and every one of us is to be used for His glory and giving God the glory so that we can take the back seat and let Jesus, who is the head of the body, allow us to function the way we were designed to function. For we are His what? Workmanship. And when I think about this workmanship, I think about construction. Today, I think in construction, because we have all different individual type of talents, the construction work is divided up. You got your framers, and you got your sheetrock people, and you got maybe somebody else does the mudding and the sheetrock. You got all these people doing all different functions. And I remember back in the old days, like when my dad was a carpenter, they did everything. They built everything from scratch all the way up. They didn't have they weren't able to go and order the things and just have everything there lined up, ready to go. Nowadays, you can buy a house kit and just have everything shipped to you, and you just put it together. And in the same way, I believe that God created each and every one of us to use our talents for His glory. Workmanship, quality, craftsmanship. I wish we would go back there. Because when I see construction workers today, they don't care about the next person. They want to get their job done. It doesn't matter if it was done right or not. And I've seen some framers that make it really hard for the rest of the people. If you understand what I'm talking about. I know I see a nod of head. Those of you who understand construction, when you get to especially hanging cabinets on a wall, has anybody hung cabinets on a wall that was crooked? I remember I was doing Dr. Westfall's house in Scottsbluff, and whoever framed that wall didn't crown all the boards the same way. One was going one way and one going the other way. And what happens is that you can get as much as an inch off if you don't crown all your boards the same way. There's no pride in the sense of workmanship. You know, God created each and every one of us with talent so that we would use it to glorify Him. But when I see people do haphazard type of work, they just want to get in there, get paid, and walk out the door. It used to be that people had pride in their work. Maybe that's why our nation is falling apart, because people do not have, well, for one thing, maybe don't even enjoy the work that they do. How can God bless people that are working through life doing a job that they weren't created to do? But just because the money is good, they're doing that particular job. We were created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them. In Isaiah, everyone who is called by my name, and whom I have created for my glory, whom I have formed, even whom I have made. You see, before even this whole world was even created, God knew that you had a purpose. And you were to use that purpose to glorify Him. In Matthew, this is one that I think a lot of times we don't want to even talk about. But Jesus himself says it's like this. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne, and all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one from another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. Mary, can you advance the slides? I don't know, my earphone's not working. Oh, there you go. And he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. And the king will say to those on his right, "Come, and ye are blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and ye gave me something to eat. And I was thirsty, and ye gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer to him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" The king will answer and say to them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these my brothers of mine, even to the least of them, you did it to me." And then you will also say to those on his left, "Depart from me, accursed ones, into the eternal fire which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. And I was a stranger, you did not invite me in, naked, and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." And then they themselves also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not take care of you?" Then he will answer them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life." You see, God expects each and every one of us to minister to one another and to those who do not know the Lord. He expects it. Just like in this story that Jesus is saying, he's saying that whenever you do something, you better be doing it for me, because if you don't do it for me, who are you doing it for? And if you're doing it for yourself, who's going to get the glory? You think you're getting the glory? Not even you will get glory. Because at the end, you'll perish in the works that you have done. Because it will be all burned up in eternal fire. God expects us to use our talents, our gifts, to glorify Him. There's a man, his name was Niccolo Paganini. And he was a concert violinist. Anybody heard about him before? Last night was the first time I had ever heard about him. But I read this story, and I thought, wow, this is awesome. So I thought I'd share it with you. Niccolo Paganini was a well-known, gifted 19th century violinist. And he was also well-known as a great showman with a quick sense of humor. His most memorable concert was in Italy with a full orchestra. And he was performed before a packed house, and his technique was incredible. His tone was fantastic, and his audience dearly loved him. Toward the end of this concert, Paganini was astounding his audience with an unbelievable composition when suddenly one string on his violin snapped and hung limply from his instrument. And Paganini frowned briefly, shook his head, and continued to play, improvising beautifully. Then, to everyone's surprise, a second string broke. And shortly thereafter, a third. And almost like a slapstick comic, Paganini stood there with 3 strings dangling from his Stradivarius. But instead of leaving the stage, Paganini stood his ground and calmly completed the difficult number on the one remaining string. I think when we go through life, we can make excuses about why we're not serving the Lord. I'm too old. There's nothing more that I can give. But if you can be like Paganini, who desired to continue despite the odds, how many of us are willing to do that? Continue with what God has called us to do to the very end. When is the end? When is the end of our ministry? You know, so many times when we get to a certain age, we think we're done with it. Especially in our society, we think of this thing called retirement. Those that stop serving other people, you know what I see? They die. They might still be walking around, but they're dead. But when I hear of people who say that they're busier than when they were working, they have a big smile on their face and they say, you know what? I enjoy doing what I do now. I'm busier than I was when I was working. Because you know what? They can really do what they enjoy doing. And if they're doing it through the service of the Lord and giving God the glory for all that they have and do, then truly their life has been blessed. So the question for you today, who's getting the glory for your life? I like, again, that one saying, you know, about the epitaph. The markings on your gravestone. The year that you were born and the year that you died. There's a little dash in the middle. What does that dash represent? Are you giving God the glory? Father in heaven, we thank you so much for who you are.